Dear students, in this unit we will talk about the key event which take place in the life's history, which includes the origin of unicellular organism. Mean how and when these unicellular organisms they were originated when we talk about the history of life on this planet. Now, the earliest direct evidence of life come from the fossilized unicellular stromatolites, which are 3.5 billion years old. Now, we don't have any direct record. We solely depend on the fossil record, and the earliest fossil record of living organism is of stromatolites, and it dates back 3.5 billion years. Now, stromatolites are actually the layered rocks that were formed when certain prokaryotic organisms they bind thin films of sediments together to make a hard structure. Now, stromatolites and other earlier prokaryotes were Earth's sole inhabitants for about 1.5 billion years, and they transformed life on our planet. They transformed the environment, they transformed the conditions which became suitable for the advanced life form which appeared later on. Now, after the first cell originated, they diverge over several billion years into the rich biological diversity that characterizes our planets today. So, even at this moment, there are millions of different species of those primitive earlier prokaryotic organisms is present to date. Initially, unicellular prokaryotes predominant this planet. Later on, unicellular eukaryotes originated from these prokaryotes. We are well aware with the difference between prokaryotic organisms or prokaryotes and eukaryotic organisms or eukaryotes. Prokaryotes are the smaller, simpler, earlier life form as compared to the eukaryotes. The prokaryotes have many differences when we compare it with eukaryotes. We have discussed in a lecture in previous lectures. Now, the exact number of species living today is not exactly known. However, many biologists estimate the number to be in order from 10 million to 100 million. Now, the wondrous diversity has been portrayed as many scientists as the twig tips on a tree of life, which means they are the external branches. The existing species are actually the external branches which originated from larger trunks and many other branches which are not present at the moment, but they complete the tree of life. More than 99% of all species that ever existed on Earth are now extinct. Now, when we trace the branches of tree of life to larger and even larger connections, eventually lead to a single trunk of tree of life that represents the few simple unicellular organisms that evolved the solely or the first one to be evolved early in Earth's history, and they are the ancestor of all species which are living today. This is the example of one of the unicellular organism. It is a eukaryote. It is not a prokaryote, as you can see that it has a well defined nucleus which is confined in a nuclear membrane, and it also has many different structures, membrane bounded organelles, which are absent in the prokaryotes. So this is a typical paramecium which is a free living unicellular eukaryotic organism present in the water bodies. Now, most atmospheric oxygen gas which is present now, it is actually of biological origin. It was produced during the water splitting step of photosynthesis, and that photosynthesis was performed by earlier prokaryotic organism, which you can say autotrophic prokaryotic organisms. The oxygenic photosynthesis was first evolved by the photosynthetic prokaryotes some 2.7 billion years ago, after which the oxygen was finally become abundant in the oceans, and it started to gas out in the terrestrial environment into the air, and it entered the atmosphere due to more and more increase in the number of oxygen into the oceans. Now, the oxygenated environment gave rise to the diversification of a large number of different organisms. After these unicellular eukaryotes, which originated around 1.8 billion years ago, they started diversifying, and some of those increased in size, prokaryotes increased in size, and they started taking inside some prokaryotic organisms, the smaller prokaryotic organisms, through a process known as endosymbiosis. We know that symbiosis is a relationship, it's a kind of beneficial relationship among two organisms in which both organisms gets benefit from each other. So the larger prokaryotic cell started residing inside the smaller prokaryotic organisms. If we take the example of eukaryotes, in eukaryotes, mitochondria and plastids are the examples of endosymbiosis. Both plastids as well as mitochondria, they have their own DNA, which gives the idea that they were small prokaryotic organisms. In the evolutionary history, they started living inside these eukaryotes, and they help the eukaryotes in the generation of the different processes, especially the generation of ATP, which is very important for the life of the organisms. And in return, the cells provide them shelter as well as food in order to convert this food into the energy. Some example of the unicellular eukaryotes include amoeba, euglena, and paramecium, etc.